Hi, welcome to What's the Book About? I'm your host Kevin. This is Voices of Hope by David Feintuch. This is the continuing adventures of Nicholas Seaford and how he prevents a genocide. We start in the year 2229, and it's been about a decade since the end of the previous novel, and in the interim, Nicholas became Secretary Governor and ran the government till about 5 years before this book starts, when his government dissolved, and now he's in sort of semi-reclusion. Now, unlike previous novels, this book actually doesn't follow Nick and Nick's perspective, but actually takes four other characters' points of view. First, there's Philip, Nick's son, a genius and somewhat socially awkward kid. Second, there is Jared, Philip's very best friend, and the son of one of Nicholas's longtime friends. Third, there is Pedro, a trader in the ruins of New York City, who we've met in a previous novel. And lastly, fourth, there is Pook, a young teen just on the cusp of becoming a gang member and a full adult. Now, two events will take place that will change everything. First is that the current government decides to shut off the water supply to New York City, and second, young Jared will run away from home. Okay, so that's the spoiler-free introduction. Be warned, from here on there might be a few spoilers. I'll try to keep it to a minimum. Okay, so these two events are rather actually downplayed when they occur initially. The first being that the government is cutting off water to New York City, the ruins, because no one's paying for it, and they're actually building several mega skyscrapers where taxpayers are living and paying and needing the water. And since they're one paying for it, they're the ones that are going to get it. And Jared, when he runs away, he makes a stop at a hotel that's just on the outskirts of the ruined city of New York, and to avoid getting caught and sent back home or even arrested for running away, he escapes through a fire exit that leads into the ruins of New York, where the gangs are fighting to try to get any source of potable water now that the only real legitimate source has been cut off. Now, Jared becomes embroiled in the gang warfare through Pook, the young gangster, or at least the young gangster wannabe, and getting him involved in the gang warfare, they end up uniting the gangs against the government. And Jared, who actually is a computer genius, ends up being their super secret and extremely effective weapon to fight against the government. Now, young Philip is chasing after Jared and ends up finding him and bringing Nick along, and once Nick gets involved in the conflict, it escalates as the gangs are fighting against the government, and Nick ends up having to save these lost and forgotten people of the ruined New York City. Okay, so what's good and bad about this book? Well, the four characters and four perspectives that we are seeing this conflict from could have actually been a real mess, but the author gives them rather distinct voices and personalities, and very importantly, distinct perspectives on the conflict if it's going on. The three younger characters, all very focused on their emotional issues and their immediate problems, while the one adult character, seeing the larger picture, ending up helping to put the pieces together. Now, of the four perspectives, I have to say that young Philip is the least distinct and least fleshed out, I guess you'd say. He's presented almost as the perfect son. Aside from being a little socially inept, he's smart and genius, and he's a younger version of Nick without his religious flaws. And this does make him a little weaker as a voice for the conflict, but you do get emotionally invested in the conflict from each of these characters' point of views. Now, once that's said, you do actually see that each faction is too focused on their own immediate goals to realize the larger picture of what they're doing. And it really helps to paint a good, strong picture of the difference between those who have and those who have not. Defined solely on what they possess and what they don't possess, but on the decisions that they make and whether or not they actually think them through for the consequences. And misconceptions abound on both sides. And it leads to this inevitable, very bloody, very dangerous conflict. It's only by embroiling Nick in this conflict that it actually ends up getting resolved, because he's able to connect both groups and the different factions to realize that it's not just about their factions and their stances, but that they're all people, and people are hurting people for reasons that are very petty, almost. So in the end, what is the book about? Class warfare. Not surprising given the setup and the perspectives that the story is told from. Because the people with money disregard those who are poor and who have no money, who are not contributing, it ends up forcing them into conflict, a violent conflict. And there are great characters in this, and really stunning action, and some surprising betrayals, and the fact that the rich, there are those that are considered part of the rich class who actually really do care for people just because they're people, regardless of their station, makes it a compelling story rather than just a call to action for the poor against the rich. And I mean, aside from Philip's character being nearly superfluous, it's told really well. And this is why I've got to give the book 3 out of 4 stars. It's published by Aspect, and I highly recommend going out and getting it. You can get it as a paperback or an ebook, so read it and enjoy. Till the next time, have a good one.